I would like to say, Andrew, that it's the exact opposite for Arkansas basketball, but it's a little bit all over the place because you got some folks who are thinking, hey, this is a Final Four type of roster that John Calipari's put together for his first season. This is a no-brainer, top 15 team, whatever. And then you have some that are a little bit more skeptical. For every, poll where you see the Razorbacks in the, the top 15 and the way too early top 25, you'll see one here and there that doesn't have them ranked or hasn't projected low in the SEC or the NCAA tournament or whatever. And it's really interesting to see the variance and all that. I think some of it is a combination of not just being in a new place and having to build an entirely new roster, but Coach Cal's track record of recently losing early in the NCAA tournament. But all those teams were good. Like they all earned 3 seeds or 2 seeds or whatever in the NCAA. So they had great seasons. So it's weird how that kind of narrative can impact rankings and stuff. But our buddy Jeff Goodman is at it again. He was a Razorback hater dating back to the Mike Anderson days.
He was a Mike Anderson hater. Like he genuinely hates Mike Anderson. Like and would tweet vicious stuff about him, bro. Like that was nuts.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. He was wishy-washy with Muss. He was very offended that Muss didn't recruit shooters. Well, frankly, so was I.
So were we.
Yeah, I get it. It's fine. But they've been doing on the Field of 68 their off-season grades and talking about individual teams, whatever. And I will give Jeff Goodman some credit, but he did have some talking points that I want us to go through. But he did say that he thinks Arkansas is the second best job in the SEC. I agree.
Notable.
Who else would even be in that conversation? Kentucky
is obviously.
And
I mean, like Auburn's not a tremendous job. I mean, obviously Bruce Pearl's done a good job there, and they're a good program at this point. But Tennessee, is that like a top 3-4 job?
Probably.
I guess. Probably.
Florida could be.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the 2 national championships. I mean, in my lifetime, Florida basketball has been pretty good. But yeah, I don't know if like nationally who is viewed. I mean, A&M, I wouldn't say is a particularly sought after college basketball.
I guess Bama's starting to climb the list there.
I think Eric Musselman deserves a lot of credit.
Yes.
Because that 100% would not, Coach Cal wouldn't be at Arkansas if Eric Musselman hadn't come to Arkansas, in my opinion. And I think everyone's opinion, but also kind of reopening the nation's eyes as to what Arkansas basketball can be and the ceiling it can have. And obviously he didn't get to reach the ultimate ceiling that we all kind of hoped and thought might happen. But I think he definitely showed people like, hey, it's not hard to get this place that has a top 3 arena, that has a crazy fan base, has awesome facilities. Like it's not that hard, and a state that produces a ridiculous amount of basketball talent. It ain't that hard to get this sucker up and running. And so I think Jeff Goodman saying that is a testament to kind of the evolution of Arkansas basketball this last decade.
Yeah, I would agree. And again, in fairness to him, he gave Arkansas a B+ grade for their offseason. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
My only thing with it, I'll just never understand some of the things that he gets really worked up over. I think he had the Hogs. I think he said they maybe 5th or so in the SEC, maybe like a 7-8 seed type of team. That feels a little bit harsh to me. The SEC is going to be good. Don't get me wrong. But a couple of the things that he was really, I think overreacting to, Arkansas not having a true point guard, like a pass first Steve Nash type of point guard. I don't understand. I don't understand why that's such a big deal. And his partner there, Rob Douster, was talking about, if DJ Wagner could mold himself into the mindset of DeJuan Harris at Kansas, who refuses to shoot the basketball. He's the dude who just won't shoot the ball. He won't do it. But he averages like 9 assists a game. If he would do that, then Arkansas would be really, really good. Like you got to have the table setter because Nelly Davis is going to go get buckets, whatever. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I really don't. You know who didn't have a pass first point guard last year? UConn, who won the national championship. You know who else didn't? Bama, who had Mark Sears as their leading scorer at the point guard position. They made it to a Final Four. The game has changed, man. I just don't think you see that type of player anymore.
You definitely don't. And I mean, you mentioned UConn. When I think of UConn basketball, I think Kemba Walker. I think Shabazz Napier. I think of these guys who were point guards, score first guys that kind of led their team. I mean, think about the NBA level even, because that's obviously the highest level of basketball. When you watch Team USA, did they have a pass first point guard? You could argue LeBron was the point guard of that team, basically, which obviously LeBron is, a generational facilitator. But like, has anyone ever told the Warriors, like, Steph needs to be a little bit more of a table setter? I know he's a great shooter, but we need Steph to be a table setter. Dame Lillard, you think people are like, hey, Dame Lillard, why don't you dish it into the post a little bit more, bruv? I agree with you, Curtis. I think basketball has kind of evolved to that point where having 5 like kind of positionless guys that you all have to defend and respect, I think that means a lot more. I would argue, I mean, Jeff Goodman, of all the things he's weird about, the shooting I think is always kind of valid to me.
Yeah.
But I think that's way more essential. Your point guard has to be able to shoot way more than your point guard has to be a true table setter. That's just where basketball is at in 2024. And so, yeah, I think it's a little bit weird. Frankly, Curtis, like with this Arkansas basketball team, it's not that I think people should be doing the like, hey, they need to be a Final Four or they need to be in your top 5, like whatever. I'm not going to argue with anyone who has Arkansas anywhere in the top 20. I think this team has such a high floor. Now, I want to be careful because I kind of said this last year. I thought Arkansas had a high floor last year. They didn't. They had a pretty low floor because they hated each other. But it's like, you mentioned the pass first point guard, but it's like, you can't say Arkansas doesn't have enough size. They got plenty of size. Can't say they don't have guards that can score and they can do things. They've got plenty of versatility. They've got freshmen. They've got older guys. They've got transfers. You can touch on the continuity. Half of the roster has played for Cal before and have played with each other and know each other. I don't know really what the hang up would be to like make the case that Arkansas is not going to be at least pretty good.
Yeah, I agree with that too. The point guard thing's weird to me. I mean, if it's not an issue at UConn or Bama or anywhere else, I just don't understand why it would be an automatic disqualifier really for an Arkansas team that brings in a McDonald's All-American freshman point guard and has a dude coming back who averaged 10 points and 3.5 assists in the SEC last year.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, it's funny that they mentioned DJ Wagner because it's like he's the closest to being like a true table setter for Arkansas. But also it's like John L. Davis. It'd be one thing if John L. Davis were this unknown commodity.
Right.
Dude's a baller. Like I don't think Arkansas needs to ask him to be anything other than John L. Davis. Like I'm okay with him just being him.
Yeah, I'm totally okay with that. And now, do they need a better version of DJ Wagner than Kentucky got last year? Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he shot sub 30% from 3. You want that to be better. Given Goodman's thing for shooting, I'm surprised he didn't bring that up for Arkansas.
I mean, you can make that case for sure.
We've got a Pot at the Palace coming out later this afternoon, and that's one of the things I touched on about like what might be a red flag for this team. Well, it is shooting. I think they'll shoot a better percentage, but they don't have a lot of volume there. They just don't. Unless some of the freshmen hit, whatever. You get better production from 3 from Big Z and Trevin Brazil is knocking down 1 a game, whatever. Like you need a lot of things to go right there. But the whole point guard discussion just seems a little bit strange to me. And he also said Big Z is not a good passer. And I just flat out don't agree with that at all. But he was also concerned with, Andrew, and you mentioned it just a second ago, a lack of continuity, basically saying that, teams with coaches who have left one program to go to another, it's so hard for them in year one to be deep NCAA tournament run contenders because of the lack of continuity. But have you been paying attention? I mean, Coach Cal said it himself. They just moved the headquarters, bub, from Lexington to Fayetteville. The staff is still the same. DJ Wagner, Big Z, Adu Thiero, the grad transfer, the kid, Kareem Watkins, the walk-on. All those guys have played for Cal before. They know the drill. It's not like everybody's walking into something completely new here. And my other point is that's, first of all, it's more continuity than Muss typically had coming into a season. They're just practicing in a different gym. And frankly, it's more than Coach Cal has in a lot of years when he sends 5 dudes to the NBA and then he brings in a 7-man freshman class. If anything, this is the closest thing to continuity and a balanced roster that John Calipari's had in 2 decades.
Yeah, I think I'm okay to let Cal figure out how to tell Jonas Adu where to go. John L. Davis. Yeah, I think they'll figure it out okay. Yeah, you mentioned the 4 guys that are coming from Kentucky that have played together already. And all these guys are Cal guys.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like Cal. I mean, Trevor Brazil's the one that you could argue is like not a Cal guy. And even Cal seems to be kind of blown away by him. It's like, it's not like these guys are all playing for a coach that didn't recruit them or a coach that they don't know and doesn't know their skill sets. I think the coach knowing and identifying the proper talent and how to utilize the pieces is a very important piece of the continuity puzzle. And yeah, like you mentioned, at Arkansas, ain't like we've been dealing with a whole lot of continuity over here. And so, yeah, that was, of all the concerns, that's certainly not high on my list. And Arkansas has been having a lot less continuity with a lot less talent. And so, yeah, I definitely don't buy that as a big picture concern. And, I ultimately just feel like having a coach that doesn't openly dislike his team is gonna be helpful.
Yeah, it absolutely should be. That's the one thing about Cal too, is say what you want about him. And yes, there's some things he needs to evolve with, X's and O's. That's fair. I'm not going to sit here and argue that. Yes, he had to make some changes in terms of how he constructed his rosters and not relying on the one and done freshmen so much because the game's getting older, and that's something that he's addressed this offseason. But one thing you can never take away from Cal is that he is absolutely a player's coach, man. Like, he will fall on the grenade for his guys and defend them no matter what. He's always done that. And it shows in the relationships because, then there he is with all of his NBA players, checking out the games, or he went to the La Familia, the TBT thing. He was dapping up with all the La Familia guys. Shout out to Mark Pope. I know that probably felt weird for him. But it's just those relationships matter. And so it gives recruits, they see that and they go, okay, like, this dude would really have my back. Like, he's not just going to get me to where I want to go and then bail on me and that's it. Like, that support system is going to be there. And also it helps you because what are we seeing now? Like, the generation of basketball players that I grew up watching, they all have kids now who are who are going to college,
who are being recruited by Arkansas.
Exactly. Yeah. So why is DJ Wagner playing for Cal? Well, I wonder, who did his dad play for? The same thing with the Dude Thiero and some of these other guys. So that stuff matters, man. Relationships matter. That's something he's very, very good at developing, for sure.
Man, it's going to be really awesome when Anthony Davis has a child, when John Wall has a child, when all these Devin Booker starts reproducing. But yeah, you mentioned that, and frankly, Curtis, the Olympic basketball Team USA has been on my brain a lot because we just watched them. Shout out to them, and their gold medal run was fun to watch. And I was thinking about Devin Booker and how seamlessly he fit in with that group, and he kind of became the perfect 2 guard for that team. By the way, not a pass first guard. Just want to point that out. Devin Booker came off the bench for Coach Calipari. Mm-hmm. Isn't that wild to think about in college? And they didn't win a national title. They won a lot of games doing that. You think about how many talented players have willingly accepted those sacrifices. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the first half of his freshman year barely played at Kentucky. Karl Anthony Towns averaged like 7 and 5 when he was at Kentucky. And all those guys, have gone on to be great, but none of them complained about it. None of them had an issue with it. The continuity wasn't an issue. The only issue with those teams is they were too dependent on freshmen, which I don't think Arkansas is going to be, although they do need their freshmen to provide them with something, which, by the way, Carter Knox, that's my guy. That is my guy. Any evaluation of this Arkansas basketball team is neglecting the fact that Carter Knox is going to be a lottery pick, and he's going to be a stud. And he's not going to be a lottery pick because he's the number 1 option and because he's doing all this. He is the perfect wing player in college, like in basketball these days. Like, he just built in a lab to be exactly the kind of versatile skill set, doesn't need the ball a ton. Like, I think Arkansas, the mix of skills that they have, it's not like you have a bunch of talented guys who are like, give me the ball, I need this and I need that, I need whatever. I'm trying not to get too Kool-Aid-y here with the basketball team, but yeah, I think it's kind of crazy for Goodman to be like, oh yeah, just don't have enough pass first point guards and not enough continuity. It's like,
It's a little nitpicky. Oh, by the way, you mentioned Carter Knox, the lottery pick. You know who else was a lottery pick for Cal? Kevin Knox.
Kevin Knox.
There
Although
you go.
I hated Kevin Knox, man.
I didn't like him either, bro.
hideous guy to look at.
I don't guess I realized he was as good as he was in the moment, but I mean, he was as a freshman, he was, first team all SEC freshman of the year, All-American, lottery pick. Like he was.
Yeah, when he was number 8 overall to the Knicks. He recently, I actually just saw him playing in summer league this past year, which is
really
crazy because he's like 28 now.
Yeah.
But when he was in summer league, I remember people even then talking about him like he was going to be this crazy thing. That was a crazy Cal team because I mentioned Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I used to watch that Kentucky team a lot. And Shea, it took them until about December to find out what they had with Shea. And so you had Kevin Knox, and I forget who the other guard was next to them, but they had the wrong lineup on the floor. Jared Vanderbilt also was like not available, but it took them about halfway through the year to find out, wait a minute, Shea's our best guard, and Jared Vanderbilt is this weird freak, guard everyone defender. That was actually a fun Cal team looking back on. And I think he's got so much experience, dealing with these egos, dealing with these personalities, dealing with these skill sets. The X's and O's critique is a fair one. It's definitely not an unfair knock on them. But I just, more often than not, all these teams that we want to talk about and nitpick, they usually win a lot of games.
Yeah, 100%. Some good things in the chat here. That's not the one I picked, but I'm gonna get back to it.
Man, that was quick.
Yeah, it came up quick. Eureka Strings said that he started DJ over Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham thing. Kills me. What's so wrong with having great players come off the bench? Everybody can't start.
They played 30 minutes a game too, man.
You know who's not complaining about DJ Wagner starting over Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham? It's Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham, because they're both top 10 picks and they're both in the league now.
They're both sitting there counting that money.
Yeah.
Just counting their cash while they're worried about starting.
And that's not why they lost to Oakland in the first round of the NCAA tournament either. So,
They lost to Oakland because Jack Golke busted their ass. That's why they lost.
That he did. It's a shame that he's not going to be at Bud Walton Arena when Oakland comes to town on December 30th.
He was hooping in summer league too. I saw him getting up some shots.
He was. I do think it's cool that Cal scheduled that game. And I think some people look at it and they're like, oh, he's just trying to, Oakland loses their best players and now he's trying to come in and get them in Bud Walton and get a little revenge. It's really not about that so much as it's becoming more and more hard, especially with conference realignment, for these mid-major programs to get opportunities to showcase themselves, to get a win on the resume that could, put them in position to get noticed. Well, here you go. And so it's a favor from Cal. Now, do I think that Arkansas is going to beat the hell out of them? Yes, I do. I do think that for sure. I'm excited about the schedule. I'm anxious to see them get the last few games put together. I do think that they're going to get one more biggie on the schedule. You've got Michigan at Madison Square Garden. That's awesome. You go to Miami, which is cool, kind of weird, but it's cool. You get Illinois there in Kansas City on Thanksgiving Day. That's pretty exciting. I like that a lot.
Really like that.
I think that they're going to get one more big game. Neutral site. Wouldn't be surprised if that was in Dallas. But I don't know what the final home schedule is going to look like. Because that was the one thing with Muss, man, is they could never really get anybody serious in there for a game in Bud Walton Arena unless a conference put them there, unless it was the Duke's coming because the ACC challenge.
And even then, it was always in February when they do the challenge thing where I wish Arkansas had more, like you're saying, of the early season non-conference opponent. Because those early season non-conference crowds always kind of depress me. And I get it. You don't want to go on a Wednesday night to go see San Jose State or whatever it is. But I always do kind of wish, I'm like, man, I wish there was a little bit more buzz early in the year. And I know there's overlap with football and all that. And I get it, before I lived in Fayetteville, I couldn't get up for games either. So I feel it. But it always kind of depressed me. So I would love for there to be a marquee Bud Walton Arena early season-ish or early-ish season game.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool. Hopefully they get something worked out. I think they will eventually. That's something that Cal's going to be able to wind up doing. I see Eureka String says Gonzaga home and home. Yeah, I mean he did that at Kentucky.
Yeah.
He got Gonzaga into Rupp. They lost that game last year, and then they went up there and played. And that's what it'll be. Like, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Like, if somebody comes to Bud, you're gonna have to go there the next year or whatever. But Mush just didn't really do that kind of thing. So I hope we see more of it from Cal.
Back when Cal was at Kentucky, they had a home game in like November against Lonzo Ball and UCLA. And it was like De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk versus Lonzo Ball and Bryce Alford and TJ Leaf and all these guys. And it ended up being a preview of a Sweet 16 game because I think Kentucky beat them in the Sweet 16 that year. It's like that kind of stuff, man. Like I remember that vividly because I'm a college basketball fan and I'm a casual college basketball fan, but I can remember who Coach Cal was playing. I can remember who the top draft picks, and I just am excited for Arkansas to be in the mix of all that. They're going to be at the center of everything that's happening in college basketball. And Curtis, I'm so flipping excited.
Yeah,
I'm just excited, man. It's awesome. And Jeff Goodman gave Arkansas a B+ for their offseason grade. It's a fair grade. It's a freaking A+ to me, man. This has been the best basketball offseason ever.